I'm Matt from Winnetka Bowling League, and you're watching A-Sides.
This sound, I want it to surround me. Play it loud, play it loud, play it loudly. A-Sides, around, around, around we go. A-Sides, let's play all life and here we go.
How's it going, dude?
Pretty well. How about you?
Things are, I would say feeling a little bit like normal, but everything by the second is changing and
Yeah.
and horrendous in a different way. So it's kind of hard to judge what normal looks like. And I hate the term new normal, but I don't know. Hope springs eternal, and it feels a little bit better than if I did this interview maybe a month ago. So
Yeah, it's I think you nailed it when you said it's just every day presents a different set of stuff,
Yeah, I mean, I always say this to people, like, I'm waiting for the frogs from Magnolia. I don't know if you saw the movie, to like fly from the sky. Just like mid-interview, I'm just waiting for frogs to hit my windshield. This is my office to escape my kids from homeschooling, which thankfully is coming to an end.
that has its whole own set of things.
I mean, it's just, you're homeschooling, no? Or
Luckily, my wife has taken that on as
Okay.
her thing, so she's been teaching our 8-year-old, and I'm humbled. That's all I can say. She's full-time, 5-6 hours a day, like fully teaching school. It's absolutely insane.
It's
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's nuts. It's like on one hand, it's an amazing experience because you get to be around your kids in this different kind of role, role in quotes, and then on the other hand, you just kind of want to jump out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, God bless your wife in more ways than one, for her talent and for her patience lately, I'm sure. But let's talk about the band, man. I am a big fan. I was telling you, offline, and I have no musical ability, but I can only imagine that you have this new project and you're probably super psyched about it. And selfishly, you can't go out on the road, you can't perform. You did a killer music video for Kangaroo, by the way. You can hardly tell that it's a pandemic music video. So congrats on that. But I mean, it's got to be a little bit frustrating, describe the feeling, being in a band, having a new project, and just kind of, we have no control over this. So it's got to be frustrating.
It's interesting. I think, at least for me personally, it feels like it doesn't feel like there is such bigger and more important things going on in the world that it's kind of the last thought on the list in a lot of ways, which is odd because for something that typically is at the top of the list always, what record are we making? What tour are we doing? What's next? And are we writing? Just all the everydayness of being in a band and being an artist has taken such a backseat in these past couple of months for obvious reasons, that I don't know that I've totally experienced that feeling of frustration as much as just sort of just pause, because there is nothing we can do about it, and everybody who is an artist or an actress or works in that field is in the same position where your hands are a bit tied for the moment. So it's been an opportunity to connect with people in different ways, which I've really enjoyed. Starting this band was sort of an exercise to leave behind a lot of the stuff that I'd previously done that I wasn't as excited about. And I think since starting to do some of these live streams and stuff, it's been actually fun to revisit some of those things, because it feels like it's for a selfless community thing of just bonding with people. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something that takes on a different set of emotions every day, I feel like. But, for the most part, it's just been a refocus.
Right. I mean, this obviously is bigger than everything. How about, in terms of creatively? I mean, again, before I hit record on Zoom, which is everyone's new best friend, actually not even a new best friend anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like an old friend that you kind of wish was just like a Facebook friend that you checked in occasionally with now. Like, I wonder what Zoom's up to.
Yeah.
Like, remember when Zoom and I were really close?
Too close.
And we thought it was kind of like not going to be a close friendship. And then we got close, and then it was like, maybe we should part for a little while.
Yeah.
But how have you been with, creative wise, using this time as a creative outlet? For me, I mean, just the weight of everything has been pretty tough. I'm a writer. I'm not, I am in the creative world, but I'm not in the music world. I don't know if it gets in the way at all for you in terms of creatively to just kind of go into the studio, mess around, record some stuff, or if it's just this is too.
It definitely. I didn't work for the first like 5-6 weeks of quarantine because I was just home with my family in that mode, and obviously, like everybody else, just peeled to what's next. I think a lot of people got back to writing and doing sessions and that kind of stuff way sooner than I did, but I just didn't. And I still don't really feel like what I'm doing is that important when you put it against what's happening in the world. So yeah, I get that. I don't like the word inspiration or inspired, but I don't feel terribly inspired, and it's just because the focus is and should be on other things. But I started coming to the studio probably about a month and a half into the quarantine, and a lot of artists are making records right now, and a lot of artists are looking for songs and that kind of stuff. So the opportunity is there, and after 6 weeks, 7 weeks of not creating, you definitely feel the urge of like, oh yeah, like that's the longest I haven't written a song in probably my life, So it did feel good to get back into that rhythm and start working on stuff, but it definitely comes with way less pressure, or I'm not surrounding it as being this precious thing, because after this other experience and the things we're still experiencing, it feels so not the main event,
Right. But I mean, I will say that I disagree with you in terms of what you do is not important. Like, I understand, like, from a personal note, I know exactly what you're saying. Like, I know that if I've written a bunch of books, and for the most part, it's, it's not this, but like fart jokes, right? It's not that. It's not on that level, but it's not, it's witty humor stuff, which I think in the grand scheme of the world means very little. But for me, I think music is so powerful. Even the poppiest of songs can help you. You know what I mean? So like, I think that what you do is like super important. But I totally get what you're saying. Cause I mean, everything is so much bigger than all of us. And I think it's funny that you said 5 weeks, cause I think, and it sucks, that it takes you a while, but like, I think 5 weeks was the point that it took me to be like, hey, maybe you should appreciate this time with your family. Maybe this is a time of reflection. And, I think the first 5 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it was, 4 weeks, was really like, oh shit, what are we going to do when there's no light at the end of the tunnel here? And there still isn't. And honestly, it's just, like we were saying earlier, there's something new every single day, and it's, whether it's related to the pandemic or not. But I do think, this is definitely a time of reflection, and kind of the best art, whether you like it or not, kind of comes out of it. So it'll just be interesting to see, like.
Yeah. I mean, again, on the family note, I came off a tour as soon as this started, and I have a now 19-month at home, I guess 16 month when I got off tour. So I'm appreciating that time like no other. It's incredible, and I'm so grateful for it. And I felt really happy to be present in that way and not looking at the calendar for the next time I'm running out the door. So that part of it I've definitely been appreciative of. And you're right, music is really important. And, you know, in our household especially, like that's how we've gotten through a bunch of these months, just sitting home, is like listening to records we love. And that's a huge part of our being. But it's hard to remember that sometimes when you're creating something, especially when you write context of, you know, love songs or something like that. I don't feel that I'm necessarily the guy who's going to speak to what we're living through right now. So it feels less important in that frame.
I hear you. And listen, you know, this is like so deep what we're talking about. Let's take a moment to thank you for all you've done for CVS. And like, I think that CVS is having such, you know, in the midst of this terrible backdrop between like Phoebe Bridgers' Rolling Stone piece. I mean, they're having a pretty decent run, at least in the indie music world, you know, like her posing topless and just, you know, everything in CVS. So if anyone's winning this pandemic, it's pretty much CVS. Would you say like that's pretty?
Yeah, we didn't realize when we shot our video in CVS 6 weeks before the pandemic started that was going to be any sort of center point of conversation. It was like, oh, that's the one store we're still all going to.
I mean, the one thing that I don't know about, well, I guess, listen, I was hoping they'd get their comeuppance a little bit for those like years of those long receipts that were like the size of 8 blocks, but whatever, it's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, talk to me a little bit about just the band and where they're at now. Like, are you guys working on stuff? Are you guys even talking tour? I know that you're slated for dates in September. Probably not happening, maybe happening. I doubt it's happening.
I'd say without a doubt not happening. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean,
yeah, we're kind of just releasing some tunes that we've had in the can, because we've been planning on releasing an EP as we were touring this year. So we're putting out that music and just working on more music, because that's sort of what there is to do right now. And get through to next year, and God willing, we'll be able to get back on the road and play tunes for people again. It's really important for a band, especially at our level and starting from the ground up, to build it like that. So it's hard to imagine a world in which you build a band's fan base like ours without having that component being a major part of it. So it's been interesting to see that just removed and be like, okay, yeah, that's a huge piece of what we do, you know.
It's so hard to like talk to or interview anybody without talking about COVID, or like not talk about it directly, or you know, now what's going on with protesting or any of that, or but if we can put all of that away, if we can, like, what is giving you joy right now? Obviously family. Like, what music are you listening to right now? What are you binge watching right now? Like, what's you know, I'm gonna say what's helped you get you through the quarantine, but like, just in general, what has, you know, brought you joy? Because I feel like so much of the noise, and it's not so much noise, is just, it's so negative, and rightfully so. But like, I just want to hear some good stuff. So you know,
yeah, I know it's been a definitely a period that we've never had before, because there's conversations happening now that are so overdue and that have had to happen for so long. And it is actually joyous in a lot of ways to see the attention being paid to the places that it should be paid and that it hasn't been paid. And I don't know, maybe the pandemic in some sort of weird way allowed for that level of focus for Black Lives Matter, and for that to get the deserved spotlight and attention that it should have been getting. So honestly, a lot in our household has been focused on that, because we have young kids, and just trying to educate them as to what that means and what what's happening and why it's happening and why it shouldn't be happening, and how their generation could be responsible for it not happening. So as much as I wish it was, you know, pre-quarantine of or the early days of quarantine, where you're kind of like, what TV show are you going to watch? It's been really important in our house to pay attention and to make sure our kids are paying attention to the news and what's happening. And that's kind of all encompassing right now.
Yeah. It's you can't talk about anything else, and nor should you, you know. You know, like I was saying with the whole homeschooling thing, you can't homeschool your kids without explaining why you're homeschooling your kids, A, and B, you can't not address the fact, well, I mean, you could, depending on A, how you're raising the kids, and B, how old your kids are. But like, you know, age appropriately, talking about why there's, you know, protesting or people holding up signs or whatever. And I always say, you know, yes, it's not supposed to be like this, but sometimes you have to, you know, sometimes you have to reach the bottom before you hit the top, right? So I guess we're at the bottom. and you know,
Yeah. Or at some sort of, or at a version of a high point, because again, to see the light being shown on something that it should be shown on is incredible, and it shouldn't have had to take this to get there. But being there now, it's nice to see all communities and music communities and everybody coming together to make sure that has a voice, and that we are focused, and we are continuing to speak about it, and we're continuing to push, even you know, weeks into protesting or whatever. It's not letting up. It's I don't know, that I've never lived through anything like that before, and it's really encouraging and inspiring to see that.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like Debbie Way Downer all the time, and for the first time in a while, I'm pretty optimistic. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see, man. I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate your music. I appreciate.
Thank you so much.
I mean, literally every freaking genre I feel like you've tackled, and you've well, whatever, insert like very lame cliched analogy possible, knocked it out of the park, whatever the hell you want to say. But you know, whether it's 6 months, 8 months, 3 months, or a year, you know, I'll see you guys on tour.
We'll see you eventually.
All right, my man. Thanks so much.
Stay safe. Be well.